Hello and welcome to the Lifting the Iceberg podcast. My name's Tyler James Berger, and today I'm talking with rapper, spoken word poet, vegan chef, podcaster, Edgar Soto. Edgar and I talk about his journey with podcasting, and I pick his brain on what he's learned from that journey. And we also talk about how to create community through a podcast. I hope you enjoy this discussion. Now let's lift the iceberg with Edgar Soto. Edgar Soto,
yes.
Thanks for doing this, man. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Likewise.
So I've had this idea to start a podcast for a while now, and I'm now in the groove of doing this. But a while ago, I didn't really know anyone else who was doing this until you started the 2-9s podcast.
Yeah.
And seeing you do it was really inspiring and really helped me believe that I could do it too. So I just wanted to ask you about what your journey was with starting a podcast, because you're farther down the path than me, and I'm really interested in talking with you about your experience with podcasting and all the things that you learned from it. So my first question is, when did you have the idea to start a podcast, and what were your intentions with it?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Tyler. You also inspire me. You know what I mean? You really inspire me to keep on doing podcasting, you know? But it first started years ago when I entered my psychedelic journey, and I was just finding myself and just discovering myself, going to the next level. And I remember at one point after a psychedelic journey, I had a download that it told me that I needed to listen to people have conversations. And I didn't know anything about podcasts at that time. I was listening to one podcast at a jazz channel, and it was this guy named Alan Walker. It was called Conversations with Alan Walker. He would just interview somebody that was part of the community for like 30 minutes, ask very interesting questions. And I was always, interested in that. And so I was just like, wow, I want to, interview people. I want to be part of that. I want to just interview people in the community and whatnot. So I discovered Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, and they all had their podcasts. They all interviewed people, and I was like, why not? I didn't really know what to talk about. I just wanted to do it, right? So me and my friend Hans, we started the 2-9 podcast. We basically got a few people in the community that were doing something productive, and before you know it, we just created momentum. Every week we would have a new guest on the show, and we would have conversations about what they're doing in the community. And honestly, that's as simple as I can say it, how I started my podcast.
But you were really interested in interviewing people specifically in the Jersey City area.
Yeah.
Why was it important to you to remain in a particular geographical spot?
So I was born and raised in Jersey City, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the same as it was when I was younger, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Jersey City changed. A lot of people moved in, and I guess I wanted always in my heart I felt that I needed to be around conscious people that were doing something great. Mm-hmm. So I stuck with it, I stuck with that. And my goal was to definitely interview people that were from Jersey City, making a positive change, making a positive change in the community, and I feel like that's the way we could discover these people, by interviewing them, sitting them down, and asking them amazing questions that would basically, deliver, something more productive to the community in Jersey City.
Yeah, because this is something that I'm really interested in with my podcast, with in terms of how to create community using a podcast.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to just all my guests to be a complete island from every other guest. And I'm really interested in blending worlds together. So on my podcast, two things that I want to talk about are visionary art and parkour.
Yeah,
and those seem to be so juxtaposed to each other, so different, but they're one and the same thing in my mind.
I agree.
And I feel like I want to kind of bridge the visionary art psychedelic community with the parkour community, because I think that parkour really is one of the most embodied visionary practices, or the most embodied exercises for the imagination. And I want to blend those two things together and build a community that can kind of that is fed from multiple areas, multiple interests of different groups of people in society, and kind of bridge it together and make this network, you know? And I'm interested in just kind of exposing people who might not be getting any exposure. You know, I know some brilliant visionary artists who have no voice. You know, like they're putting out these amazing pieces of art, but no one's ever heard them talk about it, you know? And I really want to give artists a platform to talk about their art, because I think that is something that will create value around the art, you know? Like what creates value? This is a question I've been asking myself, and I think that value comes from the relationship that someone has with any given thing, any good or service. But when you're thinking about a piece of art, the value of a piece of art comes from the relationship that people have with that art. You know, like Van Gogh died broke because no one really had a relationship with Van Gogh's art. You know, it's only when he was discovered, like after
no one related to his art.
No one related to it. And back then, when Van Gogh was alive, you probably could have bought a Van Gogh piece for like $100.
Yeah, for a bag of coffee or something.
But now, what makes his work priceless? How does something go from $100 to priceless? You know, and I think it's due to the relationship that people have with the art. So I want to try to create value in the visionary art community by helping artists have more of a connection to their audience, or to any person who's interested in art, because I think that letting artists speak their message will help people have more of a relationship with it, and it'll actually increase the value of their art, you know? So in what ways did you want to create community for the people that you had on your podcast to increase value in their lives? Because I mean, someone who I found out about through your podcast is Zach Ferenc. And he's an amazing artist. He's an amazing musician.
Overall great artist.
Overall great artist in so many ways. And I wouldn't have been introduced to him if it wasn't for your podcast. And I wouldn't even really feel like listening to his music is one thing, but listening to him speak about his stories on a podcast is a complete different thing, because I really feel more connected to his message now. And that makes me want to, you know, see him live whenever he's playing, like catch him in the city, like whenever he's doing a gig. And I feel like that's how you create value for,
you know, and a lot of the guests we had on the podcast, they all somehow I still keep in contact with them on the art aspect of it. You know, like there's this guy named Lawrence Chirallo who, the first day we had on the podcast, Zach was there, and Zach instantly recognized that he was an artist with value, you know, first time meeting him, and they exchanged, you know, each other's value. So Zach paid for his art, and that art is now part of Zach, you know, and it's because of Lawrence. And there was many producers we had in the podcast who are doing, you know, who are like photographers, and they created art for us. There was casting agents. Who else do we have? We had just different a whole bunch of people on the podcast that had value, and we just basically extracted value from them. And because of the podcast, they're known in the community now. You know what I mean? And I guess with Zach, he also, you know, like I said, he recognizes that too. You know what I mean? And you know. What can I say about it?
Now, there are, of course, like reasons that you wanted to have people on your podcast due to the area that you were in, but did you have any specific ideas that you wanted to discuss through your podcast?
You know what? I just wanted to hear people speak about what they're interested in, and I just want to hear people express themselves and just recognize like the common interest everybody has, you know? Like me being interviewing them or just having podcasts is the same, almost like it's me expressing myself, you know, too. You know, expressing myself so others could express themselves, you know? And I guess
well, what are some ideas that like or interests of yours that you wanted to express, or what are certain things in your life that you feel most compelled to share with the world?
I'm big into like 8 years ago I changed my diet and I became a vegan, right? And that changed my life for the better so much that that's the thing I like to rant about. That's like the thing I like to express myself to people, because I feel like if it changed my life, it could change somebody else's life. So I always like to speak about that. Yeah. You know, veganism and eating healthy.
Veganism to you is, I feel, parkour to me. It's just one of those things that completely changes your life and you feel is misrepresented in society.
Exactly.
We were talking before this about when people think vegan, they think this like dry salad,
or somebody from a different planet that's just missing out on the good stuff.
Missing out on the good stuff, or just eating boring, bland food, which is so not the case. In the same way that people, when they hear about parkour, they think about people running across rooftops, jumping off buildings, doing these insane stunts, and that's what their concept of parkour is, when that is so distant from the reality.
Because you don't feel like that.
I don't feel like that at all. I really feel like parkour is something that everyone can do, in the same way that yoga is something everyone can do. But when I say parkour is something everyone can do, like people smirk at me. Most people smirk at me like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go jump off a building. But it's like, oh, that just comes from a misunderstanding.
They don't
of what
believe
parkour
that
is.
they can do it.
I feel like that's had to have been something that you're dealing with communicating veganism, you know? So how do you convince people, or how do you communicate, not even convince them, because I feel like you're not even interested in convincing people to be vegan.
Because I don't oppose nobody.
You're just expressing what it means to you. But how is your ideas around veganism different than the ideas that you feel other people have about it?
I mean, so look, people think veganism, like you said, is dry, bland. It's because at one point I thought veganism was dry and bland. It's because I didn't have the knowledge of you know, like a proper vegan meal or whatever. So me, I was always passionate for food. Food growing up was my thing. Like the flavor and food were like a dance between love and life, you know, and like the music were the spices and the herbs, you know what I mean, mixed with the melodies of satisfied taste buds. So oh, sorry about that. So you know, like growing up, turning vegan was so simple because I already had that connection with food that I just needed to like change some ingredients up. You know, it's just take away the animal ingredients and add the vegetables, and that just made more sense to me. You know, the seasoning was there, the flavor was already there, because I recognized what flavor was. You know what I mean? I just had to change the animal ingredients, that low frequency. You know, in my opinion, I feel like eating animals is low frequency, but I don't oppose anybody that eats animals. So just adding the vegetables rather than the meat was so easy for me, you know, because the flavor was already there. So when now that I'm a vegan chef, it's easy for me to express myself through the food. So when I make something that's vegan, they're like, wow, this tastes amazing. Like, I didn't know vegan food could taste this good. And that's my whole purpose. That's the way I express myself and let people know that vegan food can be healthy and delicious at the same time.
Yeah,
and that's important.
I totally vibe with that because I'm not vegan right now, but I was vegan for 2 years.
Yeah.
My path with veganism started after I did a 7-day fast. I had just read the book Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, where he talks a lot about fasting in that one and the physical and spiritual benefits of fasting. So I think I was in 11th grade, 11th or 12th grade in high school. So I was young and I did a 7-day fast. I lost 15 pounds in 7 days.
Wow.
But that still to this day is one of my strongest like spiritual experiences.
Yeah.
Not that there was just one peak experience, but that the process of going through a 7-day fast in itself was an experience that changed my life and changed the relationship I have with my body. But when I came out of that fast, it was important to me to be on a raw vegan diet. So for 2 weeks, I was on a raw vegan diet, which that took a lot of work, but luckily I had a really amazing produce store like a block away from me. So it was not inconvenient at all to have the ingredients. I had a lot of time. I was in high school. I had my nights after 3 p.m. to just prepare food. I would spend hours just preparing delicious raw vegan food. And that worked. And then I worked up to incorporating like cooked vegetables and cooked grains back into my diet. And after that, I was vegan for 2 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
My only 2 exceptions, and these were, my one exception was my grandma's cooking, because if she took the meatloaf out of the freezer, I had to eat that meatloaf.
You know,
like I'm not about to disrespect my grandma and not like eat her cooking. Just say like, Grandma, I'm vegan now. You don't understand, okay? It's
but
2015.
Did you enjoy it though?
I didn't. I had small portions. I had enough to show her that I respected her.
Yeah.
But then my other one, and this probably in the span of 2 years, I only ate maybe like 3 times, but was hunted meat.
Yeah,
you know,
like
venison. My dad is a hunter, and he brought home a deer during one of those winters, like a 40-pound doe. And then I incorporated that into my diet a few times, and I noticed a change in my energy levels. And after, what made me shift back was after 2 years, I would wake up and I would feel like fatigued sometimes. And, and I felt just like no matter how much I ate, I was still hungry. And then I started to drink bulletproof coffee. I started to put butter in my coffee, and that completely changed my life. I feel like one of the things that I was missing most was fat, but specifically animal fat, because I was eating plenty of coconut oil, plenty of avocado, plenty of walnuts. I was a good vegan. I wasn't one of those vegans that just eat pasta and bread
and Oreos
and Oreos. Like, oh, there's no animal products, so it's vegan. No, I had spirulina. I had seaweed,
goji berries,
goji berries. I have goji berries growing in my backyard, actually. So I did and I had plenty of black beans, which is a great red meat substitute.
Definitely.
But there was something about the animal fat, and then back to the venison. When I ate venison, I felt revitalized and all my fatigue went away, because at that time I was doing really intense athletics. I was teaching gymnastics at the time and parkour, and while still having my own training practice. So I was doing incredibly physical activity throughout my week, and I felt like those animal products really helped revitalize me in a way that plants just weren't able to do. It's almost like plants, I felt like, really cleaned me out, and after that fast, that's exactly what I needed. But I felt like I needed some animal protein and animal fat to rebuild myself.
Yeah, which is okay if it feels good, you know?
Yeah, because I know like every body is different. Like everybody is different. Every body is different.
Exactly, yeah.
And some people I know, there are vegan MMA fighters, you know, and I think that's amazing. That's a great thing.
Vegan bodybuilders.
Vegan bodybuilders. And I think that from an environmental standpoint, like we should all be vegan. You know, factory farming is one of the most horrendous things to happen to the health of the earth. You know, the Amazon rainforest is being cut down for cow pastures so we can eat hamburgers. You know, that is insane. So how would you eat, like, say there was lab grown meat?
Yeah,
that it was not
in vitro meat.
In vitro meat. Would you eat that? Cellularly, like in all its forms, it is the same exact thing as
I know the company Just
patty.
Is doing that.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I saw a video about it and I was like, basically get like a cell from like a A1 chicken, and they feed it vegetable protein, and it grows into like chicken nuggets or whatever.
Yeah. But
the chicken wasn't harmed. So, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't really dig into that because it's like it's something weird. But I just prefer like my veggies and, you know, like my chickpeas.
Yeah.
My body like wants that. Like I don't want like I don't like flesh. I don't anymore, you know. Doesn't intrigue me anymore.
You know what I think that veganism really taught me was to listen to my body.
Yeah.
You know, like people get so far down these reality tunnels that they get locked up in, where they start to treat veganism like it's a religion that can't be breached. And I've seen people go very far down that road, so far as to suggest that humans aren't even evolved to eat meat, that we never ate meat throughout our evolution, and which is not supported by any science at all, because we have teeth designed to
omnivores. You can eat anything.
We are omnivores. And I've also heard vegans say such things as there are no such thing as carnivores, and that the only reason an animal would ever eat another animal is because its alternate plant-based food source is in scarcity, which I think is a crazy argument. I had this guy try to convince me. My friend Raphael was there. This is at a event that we went to in 2013. I met this guy who said that T-Rex had those teeth in order to break through watermelon rinds, which is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever
heard.
Coconuts. And coconuts. Yeah, okay, that's why. And tigers just have those teeth to peel bark off trees. So you do see that meat was an integral part of human development, but that in the year 2019, we need to rethink our relationship with meat. You know, and also, you know, meat might be one of those things where the less the better. Yeah. Maybe like even once a week or something like that.
Back in the day, I heard that like maybe like the Chinese, they wouldn't eat 80% meat in their plate. It would be like a small portion of meat, and the other portion would be grains and greens and vegetables. But now, like in this time and age, in the standard American diet is like 100%, like 90% meat.
And I know that a lot of the benefits that people see from veganism is, I don't think it's as much a removal of meat, but I think it's an addition of vegetables. I think that's what veganism has to teach too, is that the plant world, that's where the medicine comes from. You know,
cows eat plants, you know,
they also have 4 stomachs. You know, so I mean, maybe we could eat grass if we had some extra stomachs as well. But yeah, they're amazing animals, and it's important to have a good relationship with any kind of meat you eat, but also I think that veganism is something that should be more explored and expressed.
So we could knock down, you know, the slaughterhouse, the factory farm system. That's bullshit, you know. Yeah. The fact that they're abusing these animals and injecting hormones, and then people are eating it, and they're just creating. I feel like it's just creating like a toxicity in the physical and in the aura and the spirituality. It just creates like this toxicity, you know, and
then you're consuming that meat,
and obviously that's what the manifestation is, people dying of like crazy diseases, you know, heart disease, diabetes. And I feel like it's not just me, it's also you know, the secretion of the cow that's been injected with you know, the milk been injected with like hormones and stuff like that, and people are just consuming it and like in their diets every day, you know. And it's because of got milk commercials, people love cheese, this and that, And I feel like you can be, becoming vegan will, like, I feel like save a lot of people's lives, especially the animals' lives and Mother Nature's lives too. Just becoming like at least 90% vegan. You don't have to, like you said, people shouldn't make it like a crazy religion. Like, that just creates like negativity.
But at the same time, I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know if he's current governor of California, but when he was governor of California, he suggested that people have 1 day per week where they don't eat any meat. Like one
meatless Mondays.
Meatless Mondays, like one like vegan day per week, and he caught a lot of flack for that. People were getting like angry at him for saying that.
Like this bodybuilder, ex-bodybuilder.
Like, oh, I need meat. Oh, bacon tastes good. And it's so funny. So you have the polarity of people saying that everyone should be vegan and that there is actually only veganism, but then and that's kind of too far on one side, but then you have people saying, oh, I should be eating meat every day, meat is delicious, meat is this, that, and the other, and who get mad when someone suggests that they should maybe just go 1 day a week without eating meat.
Damn, that sucks. It's like he was just trying to make a change, an open mind. It's just...
And a lot of religions have days of the week where you're not to eat meat,
like Good Friday, and Sundays, but they'll resort to like fish, which in my opinion is a type of meat. A lot of people think fish is not meat.
Oh, fish isn't a vegetable?
It's a type of meat. Meat to me means like the flesh of an animal. And the way also fish is being factory farmed, which sucks, and GMO.
Well, I mean, with that too, we're going pretty far down this vegan tangent, but with factory farmed fish, I think that it's actually better to have factory farmed fish than wild fish because A, we're overfishing the oceans, and B, the oceans are very polluted right now.
True.
And there's a lot of microplastics being found in fish that are being fished. So when you have farmed fish, you have a controlled environment that the fish can kind of be curated in and grown in it, and more variables can be controlled. And they're not being exposed to pollutants, and they're not being pulled out of the ocean at a faster rate that they can replenish themselves.
But what about the GMO salmon? Like supposedly it's like GMO'd with like pork, pig cells.
Well, there's also tomatoes that have
with pig cells. That's insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, this is a really great thread, and this is something you're really passionate about, and something that you've definitely explored in your podcast a lot. But let's switch gears.
For sure, definitely.
So
I like
veganism is something that is important to you and something that you've explored. What are some other things that you've explored? And specifically, I'm interested in how you've explored creativity as it relates to your interest in spoken word poetry and performing and rapping. What are some conversations you had on the podcast in that vein? Or do you look at podcasting as a type of performing?
Yeah, I do look at podcasts as a type of performing, where it's basically, like I said before, I just want to listen to people speak their minds, and I want to just, whatever comes into my mind, I want to flow into it. So, all right, one of my few hobbies I like to do is like playing basketball. I like playing. That's one of my passions. Like the way you look at parkour, I look at basketball.
Nice.
Where you enter that no mind, that flow state where everything just happens instantly without you even realizing it. You know what I mean? It's just a pure flow. So that's been helping me flow better playing basketball. Yoga's been helping me flow better. These are the things that I picked up in a few years. And it's been helping my art, my performance, my poetry, my spoken word poetry, my podcasting, my just speaking, having conversations with people. And I feel like when you do parkour, I feel like this is how I feel when I do my spoken word poetry. It's like I flip a switch and then I just enter these images in my mind that turn into words or vice versa, and when I speak, I want people to say, when I speak my poetry, I want after I'm done, I want people to be like, hey, I see what you're saying. You know, instead of
I
like,
see what you mean.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
That's a really interesting
because
thing
it's like
that
what
people say.
Yeah, it's because when I rehearse my spoken word, I feel like most of my spoken word, my pieces, they're like my psychedelic trips. I'm translating my psychedelic trips. I remember me and my friend Rafael Zaki, who's in here today, we were doing a psychedelics at his house, and he mentioned something that opened up my mind. He was like, it's like dipping your paintbrush into the pure consciousness and bringing it back down, and then just creating art. You know? And
yeah, man.
And that's what I always try to do, is just like, I want to dip my paintbrush into pure consciousness.
Yeah, man.
I want to be profound with it. I don't want it to be just like me just saying words. I want it to mean something to me.
So a question that I'm really looking forward to getting at on this podcast is, what is that thing? What is that pure consciousness that you can dip your paintbrush in? What is that source of
powerful? It's what I feel like what people think, what people call God.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that is bigger than us. It's
that comes through us.
Yeah, it just comes through us.
Exists outside, and you can channel.
Yeah,
through yourself.
You can channel. Yeah, I'm channeling myself. You know, and that's powerful because everybody has that unique way of channeling themselves. And I have a song that expresses that, where it's like, I'm channeling myself. I'm not channeling nobody else, because anybody else is just me channeling myself. And you know what I mean? It's like, I just want to channel my core self. I don't want to channel.
And I'm really working on that with this podcast. You know, this is going to be my third podcast, and I'm still really working on my speaking.
You do very well. Like,
thank you, man.
You know, the way you articulate yourself, like right now, I feel like I'm interviewing you almost, because it's like, I see what you're saying. When people speak, it's like, I see I feel like I see images rather than like words. You know what I mean? It's like I get lost in the imagery of the words, you know? And
but I'm still really, I in my own mind and my own process with doing this, I feel like I'm not as good as I could be with channeling myself. With when I get into these, I feel like I am in a type of flow state right now. Like I feel like I'm here now, but I wasn't here a half hour ago when we started this. And I feel like, you know, for these podcasts, I write some notes, and kind of like bullet points, like a platform, references, like some kind of basic scaffolding for the conversation that I can kind of jump off of, some scaffolding that I can do some parkour on. But or maybe even a better way to think about it is, it's kind of like wheels on the bottom of an airplane, you know, that like keeps it upright until the plane can kind of like finally take off.
To be relevant, I like to think about it as breaking the ice and then lifting the ice.
Oh,
you
dude,
know,
exactly. I mean, that's,
you know, it's like breaking the ice first, lifting the iceberg, metaphor. And then right there, it's like that flow state, right?
Yeah, breaking the ice, and then
you enter like these beautiful images, like this world that Alexa.
Yeah, you're looking at the graphic.
Yeah, you know, it's like once you break the ice, you lift the iceberg, and then you're in that flow state, that no mind state.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's exactly what I should have said.
Where it's just imagery, where it's just beautiful imagery. Yeah,
that is exactly what it is. So,
that relationship.
I need to, I'm working at getting better at breaking the ice to like get into that, you know, ocean of consciousness. And when you were doing your podcast, did you ever write notes? Or
yes.
Like, how did you
my
prepare?
Partner Hans, he would, I feel like he would create the references. Me and him would collab and create the reference, like questions and references, and what would we ask the guest. And it would always be in a format like a story mode. So we won't never get lost. It's basically like, okay, the first question is like the first chapter. The second question could be the second chapter, and then from there we just try to create like a story mode. But anything that happens in between, even if we make a right and take the wrong street, it's not bad, because eventually we're gonna find ourselves into the third question or the fourth question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that, and I kind of look at the structures that I'm trying to create. oftentimes as being structured like a tree, or maybe even rather maintaining this idea that I have of going under and going deep and lifting what's underneath, roots to a tree, where there is that like central trunk that you start on, and that you can like branch out onto a tendril of conversation, a tangent of conversation, but that you can then like transfer back down that route back to the trunk, and then keep going further, and
it's
take
all
another,
connected,
and then it all becomes connected, kind of like how we just had that whole tangent on veganism. And what this podcast really to me is about is creating community through conversation.
Indeed.
And I think that tangent that we went on about veganism, even though it was about veganism, it was also about creating community through conversation, because it was about the kind of ideas and discussions that you wanted to have on your podcast, which you leveraged to create community among the guests and your audience that engaged with it. So I'm doing my best to try to have these kind of expansive yet concise conversations, and I'm trying to figure out the best techniques to do that. And
honestly, I feel like you already have a unique way of just doing it, and it's and I like it a lot, you know what I mean? It's a very unique way. It's like you're basically showing your parkour in the way you articulate your words, the way you ask questions. You're showing like that flow state. So I feel like
I hope so.
Yeah, you are, you got it's just about, instead of like, I think about that too. Sometimes like, shit, what should I say? What should I do? This and that. But instead I just do it, it's like about doing it, it's creating the momentum. With the 2 9s, we had like 15 episodes, and that's a lot of episodes. That's like over 15 hours. And it's just about doing it.
It is just
and
about
whatever the purpose is, it'll reveal itself. The momentum, and just keep going. And not overthinking it.
One of my favorite quotes, I'm forgetting who said this. I want to say it's Louis L'Amour, but he said, be creative no matter what, because the water doesn't flow until the faucet is turned on. And I'm just trying to figure out ways to turn the faucet on, you know? So that thing, that state that we get into when we're doing this, so it can come out, and we can just kind of start like melding minds and exchanging ideas and directing these conversations with our own passionate curiosity and our own volition for exploring the truth. So it's just about, it's not so much about having this external structure to guide you, even though it can break the ice and be good training wheels before liftoff, but it's only to get you to that place where you are channeling yourself. And that's a song that you wrote. Would you want to perform that?
I definitely would like to perform it, but I also want to like give you a background of how I wrote that song. It was after obviously my ayahuasca experiences, and I remember at one point I was on edibles and super stoned, and I went home and I put Icaros in my headphones, and I never thought I was gonna write to Icaros. I was writing to Icaros. I was writing the song, channeling myself to Icaros. I would usually write to a beat, but it was to Icaros, and obviously I was in a flow state when I was writing this song.
Icaro being like, Icaros are very fundamental beats, very simple beats, kind of like metronome like.
But it was like the Icaros was just basically really like helping me discover these words and these images and turn them into, just create my version of whatever I was trying to say. You know what I mean? So after I was done writing this piece, I woke up the next morning and I was like, wow, this is so special to me what I just wrote. I was basically describing an omnipresent flow state, and it was just me channeling myself. So it was something that I didn't fabricate, obviously. I was in a flow state, and I was in this flow state, I was describing what it felt to be in a flow state. And that's how I'm channeling myself, and I definitely would like to perform channeling myself. Yeah, and I'll start now, right?
Dude, hey, I think that would be a good way to close it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just want to say thanks, and
thank you for flowing,
Yeah, man. And I think, you've been really inspiring to me, just as a friend and someone who kind of broke through the fear of getting started.
Yeah, you know, I still fear every day. I still overthink it, but
it's not about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway.
They say if you're not nervous, you're not ready.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to do it. Because anxiety and excitement are the same energy. You just gotta just flow it through the excitement part. Anxiety is just gonna keep you stuck. And I don't want to be anxious my whole life. I want to upgrade and I want to just do it,
Because that's how you get to that purest form of creativity.
Yeah. And I'm very grateful right now. Like I'm the type of person, that I zoom out and see myself, doing what I'm doing right now. And I just realize how grateful I am to be here right now and being on this podcast with you and you having me here. And you're saying that you're inspired by me, but it's also reciprocal. I'm inspired by you. In the same way, in the same humble way. Like I put you on a pedestal the same way, you know what I mean? It's like it's equal. It's all love. It's all like a great journey.
Well, yeah, man, I agree. And thanks for being a part of the Lifting the Iceberg community and this crazy thing that I'm doing and this network that I'm trying to build that will hopefully add value in the lives of everyone who listens.
Yeah, you're doing it, Tyler.
Thanks, man. So this is Channeling Myself by Edgar Soto.
I appreciate you, Tyler.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
So it goes like this. I'm channeling myself. I don't need any animals to promote my health. All I need, herbs and fruit, nothing processed. And if it's sold on a shelf, say less. They say stress come from poor nutrients sprayed with poison. The FDA agree to say yes, even though they tested it's toxic. I left that obnoxious mentality of thinking all food is equal. I'm blessed I can help reverse fatalities. Chefing up love on a plate. Please let me ask you what you ate. If it's drugs, it ain't late to go above. Stay awake. It's no fun to stay down. Don't run away now. I told him we're light, man. Water from Iceland. The sun give a nice tan. I see more than sight can. I'm a psilocybin medic. My psychology psychedelic. Went to class in a different realm. Overwhelmed. 15 minutes away from here. Saw the picture without the edit. How do I explain it? Then I thought I should forget it. Instead, I'll share it with the masses, trusting that I won't regret it. Here I said it. Dead it if the ego's blocking all the flow. That's the devil looking at the ceiling, knocking on your floor. Use your eyes, use your core. Your soul has something else in store. Third eye reflecting life through a hole up in the door. They'll pay less for their food, but won't pay less for their shoes. As if the quality of kicks will keep them running for clues. You knock and re-knock on the door, deny the keys and stay locked. It's your psyche. Just do it to prove that you could run without them Nikes. Material don't excite me. I'm moving lightly. They hearing slightly. You get it? Christ is like me. I work with light, work with shamans that incite me about the fruit of life tree, patterns and their rightly meanings. I hear them screaming for love. I'm channeling myself. Thank you, Tyler.
Edgar Soto, thank you, man.
Thank you.
How do people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm Edgar Soto, so I, the letter M, EDGARSOTO. And yeah, that's it. I'm on Instagram and SoundCloud. I'm Edgar Soto.
Cool.
Thank you, Tyler Berger.
Thank you, man.
It was a
Let's
pleasure.
do it again sometime.
Let's do it again. Thank you, my brother.
Appreciate it. Thanks again for listening to the Lifting the Iceberg podcast. You can find Edgar on Instagram and SoundCloud as I'm Edgar Soto. Thanks again to Alexa Spaddy for designing the graphics for this podcast. You can check her out at alexaspaddy.com, Alexa Spaddy on Instagram, Alexa Spaddy Art on Facebook, and check out her online shop where she is selling Lifting the Iceberg stickers. Also, thank you to Kerusu for the soundtrack. It's called Stay With Me. You can find Kerusu on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Facebook.